Right, good evening and welcome to everyone for tonight's Ordinary Council meeting for the 17th of June 2025. Thank you for joining us, to those watching online via the live stream, and also to the members of the public who've joined us in the gallery. Thank you for your presence and your ongoing interest in the decisions and some significant items on our agenda today. So thank you for joining us. In accordance with our governance rules, I just wanted to run through just a couple of housekeeping and guidelines that sit within our council policies, just to make sure we remain safe and respectful in these spaces for decision making. So in line with our governance rules, I will just note that it's important that community members, while attending, and we encourage you to be here, please do not interject or speak during the meeting while councillors are making their contributions and taking part in debate. It's important that silence is maintained in the gallery to ensure we can work through the business on the agenda. Also, just a note, no recording devices should be used during the meeting. Offensive material or placards or banners must not be brought into the chamber. And if these guidelines are not followed, we do have a policy and a process whereby we provide one warning, and if the behaviour continues, we do ask that people will be asked to leave the meeting and supported by security. It's unfortunate, but just thought we'd flag that before our meeting, just to make sure that things go through smoothly and are respectful. So thank you again for everyone for joining us, and for those joining us now, welcome. We've got a full agenda for tonight's meeting, as I said, with some significant items on the agenda, so we look forward to working through those. All public questions received that were deemed valid under the governance rules will be answered towards the end of the meeting, as noted in our agenda. And before we get started, I will just acknowledge my fellow councillors. I've got the full complement here this evening, as well as the executive team. To my right, James Collins, who's the Acting Chief Executive Officer, Kerry New, the Acting Director for City Planning and Infrastructure, to James's right. To my left, Jen Bednar, Director of Customer and Corporate Services, and also Steve Coldham, the Director of Community Life, at the end on the right there. Also supported by governance officers as well as our audio-visual team. So welcome to you, and thank you for being here this evening. I'll now begin with item 1.1, which is our statement of acknowledgement from the City of Casey. The City of Casey proudly acknowledges the traditional owners, Casey's Aboriginal communities, and their rich culture, and pays respect to their elders past, present and future. We acknowledge Aboriginal people as Australia's First Peoples and as the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we work and live. Moving to item 1.2, which is the reading at our monthly meeting of our diversity statement. The City of Casey is home to a remarkable diversity of cultures, languages, faiths, identities, landscapes and stories. From our first Australians to our most recent arrivals and every wave in between, the City of Casey welcomes and represents all community members and their respective ambitions to live healthy, rewarding and happy lives. These intersecting and overlapping community stories form Casey's collective identity and contribute to its evolving, rich history. We recognise this diversity as our strength, and we aim to share, nurture and celebrate it. Moving to item 2, which is the confirmation of minutes. So before us we have 2 previous minutes from meetings held prior. This is for the council meeting held on the 20th of May 2025, which was an ordinary council meeting. Is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the meeting? A mover, Councillor Walter, and a seconder, Councillor Dazon. All those in favour? Councillor Rowe, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Moving now to the special council meeting held on the 27th of May 2025. That was to hear the submissions from the public in relation to our corporate suite of documents. We have copies of those minutes. Is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of that meeting? Councillor Perry moving. Councillor Rowe seconding. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. All right, we now move on to item 3, which is declaration of interests. I've considered my obligations under section 130 of the Local Government Act 2020, and I have a conflict of interest to declare at item 4.4 on the agenda. I've previously expressed public support for Back to Basics, and in my role as Mayor, I've been actively supporting food relief agencies. Further to this, I've had regular communications with Back to Basics, which may be perceived to give rise to a general conflict in relation to this planning application. So I'll declare that interest and will step away at item 4.4. Noting that, do any other councillors before us have any conflicts of interest in the agenda they wish to declare? Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would like to also declare a conflict of interest for agenda item 4.4. This perceived conflict of interest stems from my previous involvement through the beneficiary of the applicant. During the Black Summer crisis, I actively supported the organisation by assisting packaging supplies distributed to frontline service personnel. I also like to acknowledge that through my capacity as a councillor, I've shown support and advocacy for this organisation. While my initial involvement took place before my election to the council, this ongoing connection, together with the most recent interactions, have a perceived to show my support and may reasonably be seen as affecting my impartiality.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. That has been noted and will be brought forward again at 4.4. Any other councillors with conflicts of interest to declare? Councillor Ross. Councillor Ross, can you please turn on your microphone?
Sorry. I'm declaring a general conflict of interest in item 4.4 due to a perceived conflict in relation to historical social media commentary.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Noted for item 4.4 and will be raised at that time during the agenda. Councillor Walter.
I also will be noting a general conflict of interest with item 4.4 due to a previous professional work relationship with the applicant.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Councillors, any other conflicts of interest that councillors need to declare ahead of this meeting? No show of hands, so I've noted the 4 conflicts and they'll be raised at item 4.4. In terms of officers, do any council officers have a conflict of interest regarding reports presented this evening? No hands shown, so no conflicts noted. Thank you, officers. And again, these declarations will also need to be made immediately prior to the consideration of the relevant agenda item 4.4. All right, on that note, we'll now move to item 4, which is officers' reports. So there are 7 officer reports this evening in open council, and we will begin with item 4.1, which is council's quarterly community report for the period January through to March 2025. And we have Miss Gregg, the Manager of Strategy, Innovation and Transformation, to speak to that report. Miss Gregg.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good evening, councillors. So the item that I have before you, as the Mayor mentioned, is the quarterly community report, which provides a report of council's performance for the period of 1 July to 31st of March of this year. The quarterly community report is prepared to report transparently to our community on our progress against our council plan, our annual action plan and budget. The report also provides a summary of progress against our capital works program and key community engagements completed on projects of importance to our community. Highlights in this quarter's report include progress against annual actions, such as supporting arts and cultural development events, climate action plan updates, and phase 2 going live of our new customer service model. A full list of annual action updates is available in the report. 6 community consultations of significance and over 35,000 visits to the Casey Conversation page and 5,173 community feedback submissions. There was $17.3 million of capital works expenditure across the quarter and $57.2 million expended in the financial year to date. With respect to our financial position, we're currently sitting with a surplus of $173.5 million as at March 31, which is $19.9 million unfavourable to budget due to timing of various grants and contributions. The quarterly community report will be published on the City of Casey website.
Thank you, Ms Gregg. Any questions for the officer in relation to this report, councillors? No questions. We've got a motion presented on this recommendation on the screen. Do we have a mover for a motion from the councillors? Councillor Rowe, thank you. Moving. A seconder? Councillor Eves. Anyone speaking in opposition to the motion? No? All right. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Eves, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
This report, this annual action plan, it focuses on creating an adaptable, innovative and financially sustainable organisation that delivers maximum community benefit. The KPIs and financial reports show we are achieving this, and this is good for all residents in Casey, not just mine in Quarters Ward. Good news story.
Thank you, Councillor Eves. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station, page 24. The update's not very informative, but also there's a mistake there. It should be 9 councils. They're saying 8 councils. Could we please have a correction on that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's been noted. Thank you, Councillor Pereira.
Yeah, and I would have, on the website there's more information on it for a community update. There's not a lot on here. That's all I have to comment. Otherwise, yeah, I'm happy with the budget. We don't traditionally get a lot of money in my ward. It's an old ward.
This is the councillor. This is the
update.
community report.
Yeah.
Councillor
So anyway,
Pereira.
yeah, that's it. There's not a lot to say really, for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion and the report? Councillor Perry.
Through you, Mayor. I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just
Councillor Perry, just noting this is the community report, the quarterly community report.
Sorry.
Getting slightly ahead of it. 4.2 is the corporate suite of documents. Would any other councillors like to? Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I would like to support the motion to adopt the quarterly community report. Creating and maintaining clean and safe open spaces is an important priority for myself and our councillor group. And as noted in the report, Cranbourne Gardens Ward had 2 playground renewals completed this quarter in Warneet and also in Grace Hill Mews in Brooklyn Greens. And it's been fantastic to see many locals testing out the new play equipment, and my family have tested them out too. A number of arts and community events are highlighted in this report, and we attended the Asia Topa Festival and were wowed by the amazing cultural dances and music. However, there has been a lot of great events at Bunjil Place, and I urge council officers to consider venues outside of Bunjil Place for future events. Casey is a large municipality, and it would be great to see more events spread across Casey, especially in Cranbourne and the southern areas of Casey. It would give a wider community connection and make our southern communities actually feel part of Casey.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No other councillors. I'll make a contribution. I will be voting in favour of this report and this motion as on the screen. I think it's an incredibly important document, our quarterly reports, and again I would suggest that that residents they do take the opportunity to read it. It does provide a thorough review of all the works that are being done and works that are underway. I think one of particular note for me and an issue that has obviously been quite important to me relates to the Doveton Pool in the Park Master Plan. So there is an update here which outlines the work that's been done. Stage 1 upgrades have begun, which is fantastic for our community. This upgrades the 50-metre pool as part of the project, and this has been received so well by all residents that I've been speaking to. It's an incredibly exciting stage of this project. I will note that Stage 2 design is currently underway and consultation is out. I have heard a lot from local residents' concerns about the lack of a kids pool and slides and activities in the Stage 2 design, and I've just been encouraging those residents to take those concerns and put them into the consultation that's currently taking place. That is the right avenue for that, and I know residents have been doing so. It can be challenging when there's no opportunity within that consultation to make that known, but please do use the text boxes provided to give your feedback, because this is the time to do that, and it's an incredibly important stage in this project. So noting that, I'd like to thank officers for all their work they've done in putting together this report. I'd encourage residents to read it, and I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No other councillors. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Perry.
Through you, Mayor. I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just want to say thanks to all the residents who provided feedback to the council plan and the other documents here. And I just want to say thanks to
Any other councillors wish to make a contribution? No? All right, we'll put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Ms Gregg. And we will now move to item 4.2, which is the adoption of the suite of corporate planning documents. This is an incredibly significant piece of work that a lot of time has gone into. We've got Ms Gregg again, the Manager of Strategy, Innovation and Transformation, who can talk to the report and the recommendation. Over to you, Ms Gregg.
Thank you again, Mr Mayor. So as per the requirements of the Local Government Act 2020, council officers have developed the suite of corporate planning documents to address the priorities of our community and guide the strategic effort and investment of council over the coming years. A set of 8 documents is presented for your adoption tonight, which includes the Long-Term Community Vision 2035, Council Plan 2025 to 29, which includes the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan, our Annual Action Plan for 2025-26, the Budget Report, which includes Budget 2025-26, Capital Works Program 2025-26, and the Schedule of Fees and Charges for 2025-26, our Financial Plan for 25-26 to 2034-2035, the Revenue and Rating Plan for 2025 to 29, our Asset Plan for 2025 to 2035, and our Road Management Plan for 2025, which has an effective date of the 1st of October. These documents meet all of our requirements under the Local Government Act and provide clear direction and focus for council over the coming 4 years. They include the establishment of the amount council intends to raise in general rates to fund its services and propose a 3% rate rise for 2025-26. The documents have been informed by an extensive community engagement process, Shape Your City, which across 3 phases has engaged our community to input into the design and preparation of these documents. Most recently, this included the public exhibition of the draft suite of documents, where residents provided feedback that was considered at the special council meeting on the 27th of May. Councillors and council officers reviewed this feedback and have made material changes to the documents, which include the addition and strengthening of a number of actions in the Annual Action Plan, the removal of the Capital Works project to construct a satellite car park at Kramer Drive, and other general amendments to improve clarity. Adoption of this suite of documents confirms the focus of the community vision that Casey will be a connected, innovative and resilient community, and that council will focus its efforts in supporting this vision through pursuit of the 5 strategic outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Gregg. Councillor, is there any questions for the officer in relation to this report? No questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, my questions might be better directed to Melissa because they're more of a financial nature, if that's all right. The budget report notes a 20% increase in the waste service charges. Could you explain, or it costs to council, could you explain what is contributing to these increased costs?
Yes, I can. Through the chair. The increase in the waste charge is due to the increased items that include our service growth of an additional 5,600 residents. We've had an increase in the state government landfill levy, and we've had the continued rollout of the 4-bin mandate under the state government curbside reforms. We've also found that contracts have been increasing greater than CPI. Most collection and disposal contracts have increased significantly. Council's waste management costs are recovered via the garbage charge, so the increase in the drivers will increase what we need to collect from the community.
Just have one follow-up question, if that's okay, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther.
No worries. Do we have to implement the 4th bin to Casey? Is that something that we have to implement, or do we have a choice on that?
That is required under the state government reforms.
No worries. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Taylor.
So what about the ESVF levy? Is that something that's mandated?
Yes, it is. Through the Chair, from July 1, Council is legislated to collect the levy under the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund Act 2012, which replaces the current Fire Services Property Levy Act 2012. If Council did not include this in the rates notices, we'd be in breach of the law. We're also required to allocate rate payments evenly across all charges and remit the portion related to the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund to the state government. Should a resident elect not to pay a portion of the charge related to the ESVF, this will not happen in practice and will remain a debt against their property.
Thank you, Ms Baker. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any other questions in relation to this report, councillors? No further questions. Do we have a mover for the motion as presented on the screen? Councillor Walter. And do we have a seconder, councillors? Councillor Dazon. And would anyone like to speak in opposition to the motion? No speakers in opposition. Well, we will now move to debate and discussion. We will ask Councillor Walter, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. I believe this is a good motion because it gives the community a sense of a timeline of where we're headed and a future look of how Casey will be in the future and how we want to continually improve for the community. Namely in my ward, through the Clyde North Precinct Structure Plan, there's $11.8 million earmarked for various things such as 2 recreation reserves and different community centers as well that are going to be coming soon.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Councillor Dazon, as seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, I also support this motion. I also think it's a good motion, especially the fact that there's quite a lot of work that will be going on in the Turin ward, including the Turin Pavilion upgrade. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Perry.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Thanks to all the residents who provided feedback. I feel like, yeah, it's difficult to start again, but we did receive your feedback, and you know it was read. I want you to know that it was read. Some of it went to a vote. A lot of it wasn't taken on board, but a lot of what I said as well wasn't taken on board, and that's fine. I do know that like a lot of work and expertise went into the documents, and yeah, we can work to make Casey the place we all want to be, or we all want it to be moving forward regardless. But I wanted to mention in particular, as Ward Councillor for Greville Ward, where Wilson Botanic Park is located, I wanted to acknowledge there were 22 residents living around the park that, you know, objected in writing to the car park going in there, plus another 3 that came in and spoke really well in person in our special council meeting a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, they were in response to that car park going in at the top of Wilson Botanic Park, and as stated earlier, we've removed that $310,000 in funding allocated to the project, and instead will initiate a review and consultation process before allocating any budget to the car park at the top of Kramer Drive. So yeah, for me as ward councillor, we don't really want to repeat the issues that we've got at Bayview car park at 1001 Steps, which we're working through now. Anyway, there's a number of good projects in Greville Ward. I think the largest expenditure, it's not comparable to Turin or Clyde, but we've got nearly $1 million on drainage works, which have become more necessary with the increasingly heavy downpours we're experiencing up there. And yeah, I think just within the parameters of what we have in this suite of documents, I think that we can, make Casey a better place moving forward. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion as presented? Councillor Ross.
I'll just turn on my mic. So there are tens of thousands of words in the council plans, and probably close to that many hours combined with all the work the officers, residents and councillors have put into it. It's a massive undertaking. And together the plans provide a link, they're an accountability document and a call to action. They connect our community's health and wellbeing needs with council actions. Particularly of importance to me is the fact that we have an integrated health and wellbeing plan throughout the council documents. So all the decisions that are made have to take our health and wellbeing into account. And a key challenge for the community is connection, and it is specifically mentioned, and it was one of the areas that we as councillors strengthened when we were going through this document, and I know that was also echoed by some residents. And particularly for our young people and our most vulnerable, improving connection will improve mental health and community resilience, and it's a key theme going through the plans. I can highlight a few of the physical works that have taken or are going to take part in the Casuarina Ward, including work on Max Pawsey, which is obviously dear to my heart, being my local walking space, and I really look forward to seeing the upgraded family-friendly change rooms. There's also funding for Strathed and Sweeney, other really important recreational spaces for our young people and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Ambrose.
Through you, Mayor, yes, I would. I know this, and I'd like to thank the officers for their time. I understand it takes a lot, and with having such a large council, I know we might not all agree with everything goes in there, but I'm glad that we've landed somewhere with also the community taking their time to also provide their feedback. I think that's the biggest key and commitment to shaping our council together. In particular, I do want to also highlight the Capital Works program from one of the sporting groups, the Cricket Club and the Gridiron as well, seeing the delivery of Sydney Pargers Reserve. That's been something that they've been longing for, and to see that be delivered is going to be amazing, but also seeing the adjustments with the lighting, and there's so many components of these documents, and I know it might be challenging for people to read, but if you do have the time to have a look at it, because there is different components and different parts where you can relate to as a resident. In particular, like myself, I've been living here my whole life, and being able to see there is current struggles that with individuals that are facing at the moment financially, but to be able to deliver so much as a council and to see the rewards of individuals utilising the playgrounds and the stuff that and the roads and seeing all that stuff is just, it's got to be good to see that it's going to be delivered. And that's all through you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose. Any other councillors? Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to point out these documents were commenced and based on a large community consultation, very broad consultation, which identified the key desires being for a connected, innovative and resilient community. To achieve this, strategies and actions must be carried out within all wards, and this includes the southern wards such as mining quarters. Building a connected community involves innovative thinking. Connected communities make for safer communities and more resilient communities. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Mayor. Tonight I want to acknowledge the enormous amount of work that's gone into our suite of planning documents. The hours our community, our council officers and councillors have invested are nothing short of extraordinary. These documents are the backbone of Casey's future, mapping out how we'll grow, thrive and support our residents, and I'm proud to support them. But I can't stand by and ignore the elephant in the room, the relentless cost shifting from the state government onto local councils and by extension onto our residents. Frankly, it's unacceptable. Let's talk about the so-called Emergency Services Volunteer Fund Levy. This is a state tax, plain and simple, but they're using councils as their collection agency. It'll show up on our rates notice, but not a single dollar stays in Casey. The state claims it's for vital emergency services, but the reality is it's just another way to pad their coffers while families here struggle to keep up with skyrocketing bills and grocery prices. It's tone deaf to say the least, especially in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And it doesn't stop there. The state's landfill levy has soared, adding millions to our waste management costs that fall squarely on local ratepayers. Their mandated 4-bin system, another unfunded directive, costing us millions more. And while Casey is experiencing record growth and demand for services like maternal and child health, state funding is nowhere near what's needed. Once again, it's local families who are footing the bill. Despite all this, Casey Council is in a healthy financial position, and we are delivering. We're investing in roads, parks and kindergartens. With some clever grant chasing and tight budgeting, we're doing everything possible to minimise and lessen the impact of these state-imposed costs.
Councillor Taylor, noting the time, would you like an extension?
Couple of seconds.
Extension granted, thank you.
But let's be clear, our community deserves better from the state government. We need real support and real solutions, not more financial burdens disguised as help. Thank you.
I appreciate, thank you for your contribution, Councillor Taylor. I appreciate the interest in the matter, but I do ask that the audience does remain silent as per the guidelines, but noted. Appreciate your presence. It is... Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to thank all of the residents and community groups who contributed submissions to the review of these documents. Many community members have spoken to me about the issues highlighted in the Community Vision document, including challenges with the cost of living, safety concerns, traffic congestions, wanting to see a greener Casey with more trees, and the struggle of our roads and facilities to keep up with the rapid population growth. Over recent months, the council group has spent many hours shaping the council plan, and as Councillor Walter had said, it's the best way we can influence the future of Casey and address the concerns of our community. The Cranbourne Gardens Ward community are excited about the capital works projects coming in this financial year, including the Piersdale Playground and Skate Park upgrade, the Cannons Creek Playground renewal, and the upgrade of the Blind Bite fitness equipment and half court. As discussed earlier, and as Councillor Taylor has just discussed, the budget papers note the introduction of increased charges onto our community in the coming financial year. The advice to the councillor group is that we must implement these policies, but we understand that these increased charges will impact our already struggling Casey families. I've been advocating at every opportunity for the responsible spending of ratepayers' money, and I will continue this in the coming financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just very quickly, I'd like to echo Councillor Taylor's comments. They ring very true with me as well. I'm sure most of the community. I just want to highlight the glass recycling, that purple bin. I've had so many people complain about it. Not many people are going to use it. It's going to be an enormous cost. Hasn't been very well thought out. There must be some other alternatives. I mean, we all want to try and recycle, but having sort of collection points or something like that. Having a bin in every household, and then also shrinking the land size down. We're going to, half the land will be with bins and half of it will be a house. So I think there has to be something done about that. I don't know if there's any way we can stop it, but it's really a disaster in my mind, and an unacceptable cost in these times. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Dowling.
Through you, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge the growth and investment that's going into the Berwick Village, which is my ward, the ward of Acuna, and also assure everyone that any time we redo a playground in any of our wards and replace it with new equipment and safer equipment, that equipment that we take out is repurposed and sent to places like Cambodia and that, so it can be used by less fortunate children than ours. So I'd like to thank the officers for putting that plan in place. And it's not just build, spend. It's also thinking about the repurposing, and not everything goes to the tip. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? I think we've almost heard from everyone. Thank you. Well, I'll make a final contribution before we go to a vote. I would just also like to start by thanking the officers and councillors for the incredible amount of work that's gone into this. Many many evenings over and above, and the work that you've done line by line to go through all this work. I think it's important to note that as a new councillor group, we've come in on the back end or in the middle of this process. It's an extensive process that officers go through regarding asset renewals, regarding priorities and strategies, and I would acknowledge the work that officers have done to try and help us have our real stamp of influence on this and meet our priorities, and I'm really confident that we've been able to do this. For those who haven't read all the documents, this is our council plan for 4 years. It's a long-term updated community vision, as well as the budget and all the rating documents that have been referred to. So it is probably the most significant piece of work that we will do as a council group over the 4 years that we've been elected, and it really will pave the way for the work that we will be able to do going forward, because we've laid these steps here tonight if this motion does get passed. I'm speaking in favour of it. I think there's a lot of really positive consultation that's taken place. It's been noted by officers that the number of submissions was a lot more than previously under administration, and I think that shows the interest from the community. I'm really pleased that we've been able to make some changes. These are noted in the report. Probably the most significant from an infrastructure perspective is the one that Councillor Perry noted around Kramer Drive. I think we've heard that it's important to go to consultation with the community before something is funded, so that's been pulled back out, and consultation and discussion around this will now take place, and I think that's the way things should be done. I might talk briefly now just to some of the significant items. We've got a massive capital works program that we've funded in this, and I think that's been a reflection of our councillor group's desire to really want to get on with building better public spaces, and that goes from sport across the wards. I've been a big advocate for structured sport and the importance of local clubs, whether it be Springleaf, where in Dilwinia ward, we've been down there, Councillor Walter, or to the Hampton Park netball courts in Waratah ward that I represent. I know Melinda and all the ladies down there are rapt to see their old courts being brought up to scratch, so it's an exciting thing. 21 playgrounds, including a number of district playgrounds across Casey, are going to be replaced. This is, I think, a record number in one financial year, so we're really focusing on families. Locally, we've got a district park renewal at Batoula Reserve, only a stone's throw from the Doveton Pool in the park, so it's great to have a district level park upgrade in my community. And I think the last one is just the tree canopy. It's notable that we've I think nearly doubled our investment in tree planting in this budget. That's a reflection of our group, which I think unanimously saw, how low our percentages are, and these documents and this budget really puts that into action. So I'm really rapt to see that, and we've done all this within the rate cap, and I think that's an incredibly difficult thing to do, and I thank councillors for the work with that. Our rates will be rising at 3% in accordance with the cap. We haven't had to go beyond that. We know that people are doing it tough, and the additional costs that have been talked about today are burdens on our community, and something that we've stood against, but ultimately they've been legislated. So on that note, I think I'll just finally say that as a resident, I'm really excited that we've passed some documents that have residents' lens on it, because we all live in our community, and it's great to be able to say that these documents have been informed by the community who've been part of the consultation, but also by the councillors who've done their job as a newly elected officials. So thank you to everyone for all your work. On that, if there's no other speakers, we might put this motion to a vote. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving now to item 4.3, which is the Planning Scheme Amendment C291 case, amendment to correct anomalies in the Casey planning scheme, I believe that is. And we have Ms Tanya Asper, Manager of Planning and Building, to speak to the item. Thank you, Ms Asper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good evening, councillors. C291 is a regular fix-up amendment to correct various anomalies in the planning scheme. The anomalies came to our attention either through council staff or feedback from the community. It's important to keep the planning scheme up to date and error-free to avoid confusion for both residents and council staff. C291 will fix several heritage overlay mapping and ordinance anomalies, but will not introduce any new heritage overlays. It will rezone 2 properties and remove 1 overlay at the request of landowners to reflect how the land is currently used. It will also correct a minor typographical error in the scheme. We received 2 submissions during exhibition. Both were withdrawn after discussion with council officers. Officers also identified minor items to be updated in the documents, which do not change the intent of the amendment. It is recommended that Council adopts C291, including the recommended changes. The amendment will then be submitted to the Minister for Planning for final approval and gazette.
Thank you, Ms Asper. Councillors, do we have any questions for the officer in relation to this report? No questions. We have a recommendation on the screen. Do we have a motion, a mover? Councillor Ross. And a seconder? Councillor Rowe. Anyone speaking in opposition to the motion? No speakers against. Councillor Ross, would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Any other councillors to speak to the motion? No other councillors. This is a rather regular planning item. It deals with some anomalies as identified, as noted by by Officer Ms Asper. Councillors, will put this to a vote now. All those in favour? All hands raised. Passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We will now move to item 4.4. One of, I know many in the audience have come today. I will note that there is 4 conflicts of interest, as noted at the start of the meeting, including myself. So I will now vacate the chair and ask other councillors who've declared a conflict to also vacate. Noting that I'm not the chair, I'll now hand over to the acting chief executive, Mr. Collins, who will take the process from here. Thank you.
As the Mayor and Deputy Mayor have vacated the chambers, I now seek nominations for a motion for a temporary chair. Could I ask for any nominations? Councillor Didion.
Through you, Mr. Collins, I'd like to nominate Councillor Rowe to chair the meeting.
Councillor Rowe, do you accept the nomination? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Crowther. All those in favour? The motion is carried.
Thank you very much. The first item is PA 24-0217 for the proposed charitable distribution centre at 3 to 4, 54 and 60 Vesper Drive, Narre Warren. I'd like to pass this across directly.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. As a result of planning compliance action in 2019, Back to Basics relocated from their residential property in Narre Warren to Factory 4 at their current location in Vesper Drive, Narre Warren. They later expanded into the adjoining Factory 3, where they currently operate from both factory units today. When Back to Basics moved into Factory 4 in 2019, their operations were considered a warehouse under the Casey planning scheme. Council officers considered that it did not require planning permission owing to the scale and activities undertaken by Back to Basics at the time. However, as the service has substantially grown and expanded, this definition is no longer appropriate. After 2 separate complaints were investigated in 2023, a planning contravention notice was issued to Back to Basics in February 2024. In response to this, Back to Basics submitted a planning application in May 2024 for a charitable distribution centre. It is this planning application that Council is to determine this evening. There has been lots of discussions between Back to Basics consultant and the Council's planners trying to resolve inconsistencies in the application material and how they are currently operating. Amended application material submitted by Back to Basics in April of this year required re-advertising. Back to Basics has been offered the opportunity to attend a facilitated meeting with the objectors to the application. This was declined on 2 occasions. We appreciate that it has taken a long time to get to this point. It is accepted that the service Back to Basics provides is significant to the local community. However, Council must be satisfied that the charitable distribution centre is an appropriate use in the Industrial 3 zone and can operate without unreasonable impacts on the surrounding industrial area. As outlined in the report presented to you this evening, we are recommending refusal of the application. This is because of unresolved concerns regarding car parking areas, loading and unloading facilities, and storage of waste. The cumulative impact of all of these matters is likely to result in potential adverse effects on surrounding businesses and cannot be supported.
Councillors, do you have any questions or comments for the Speaker? Councillor Rochelle.
Through you, Chair. So just confirming that in an Industrial Zone 3, charitable distribution centres are an allowable type of service?
As outlined in the report, that is correct.
And, sorry, follow-up question. Op shops or retail spaces allowable within an Industrial Zone 3 space?
Op shops are a shop and they are prohibited in the industrial zone.
Thank you.
Councillors, any other questions?
Did the applicant give a reason for not attending the mediation with the objectors?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Note that there's no further questions. We'll now move to the screen where it's the nominated. Oh, that's on the temporary chair. Talking about myself.
Recommendations on screen. Do I have
Yeah, recommend the recommendations on the screen.
Do you have a mover?
Do you have a mover and seconder? Councillor Pereira, we have an agreement.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like to move that recommendation with an amendment, please. Can we show the amendment?
Can you outline your amendment, please?
Can we have it up on the screen at all, please?
Sure.
I can read it out. I'll read it out. So it's basically the same, but there's a point 2. subject to the applicant lodging an appeal at VCAT and the refusal being upheld, or the applicant choosing to pursue a relocation option, Council will support the applicant to identify relocation options that meet planning scheme requirements, including adequate car parking, loading and unloading, and waste management facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Pereira, sorry. Do we have a seconder for the motion? We do have one. Councillor Eaves. Councillor Eaves, would you like to speak?
No, ma'am.
No? She doesn't want to?
Me first?
No, it goes there and there, but anyway.
I've got to speak.
So we go straight back to Pereira. Councillor Pereira, will you please speak to the motion?
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. I want to start by recognising the incredible dedication this organisation shows every day in supporting our most vulnerable members of our community. I think that's commonly understood and accepted by everybody. As Casey's population continues to grow rapidly, the demand for their services is only going to increase. They began as a small home-based charity, but driven by community need, relocated to the current premises to keep up with their expanding role. However, as the officer's report makes it clear, that unfortunately the current site is no longer suitable for their operations. The report highlights significant challenges with car parking, loading and unloading facilities and waste storage. More importantly, there are inconsistencies in the data the applicant has provided to try to demonstrate compliance with these permit conditions. For instance, or the proposed conditions, for instance, the traffic and parking assessments appear optimistic when compared with what is actually happening on site. The waste management arrangements do not fully account for the volume of materials processed, and noise and amenity impacts seem underestimated. These discrepancies suggest that while the charity is trying hard to meet the requirements, the current location simply cannot support their scale of operation within the planning scheme. These issues not only affect the charity, but also the broader community and neighbouring properties. While we should refuse the current retrospective application due to non-compliance, it is equally important that we extend our support to help this charity find a new suitable location. Should this motion pass, I urge Council to work collaboratively with the organisation to identify a site that provides adequate parking, safe and efficient loading and unloading, proper waste storage facilities and ease of access for the many service users. Such a move will allow the charity to continue their vital work, fully compliant with all relevant planning requirements, as well as providing ease of access to those who rely on their services. Let us work together to ensure this essential service remains sustainable and effective for years to come. I urge councillors to note, now that we assume the role as a responsible authority, this is a planning matter, and therefore we seek guidance from the officers because there are very strict rules and regulations around planning, and we must be seen to be consistent when we're applying the legislation across all applications. Thank you.
Turn it on, turn it off. Councillor Eaves, would you like to have a few words?
Thank you, Chair. Back to Basics has provided a much needed service to the residents of Casey, but this has been at the expense of the small family business neighbours. Council has worked with them to try and find a balance and allow Back to Basics to operate. The operators of Back to Basics have been provided with many opportunities to comply with our requirements, but this has been rejected. The operators next to Back to Basics have legitimate concerns around waste management and car parking that is affecting their businesses. This is simply the wrong type of business in this location. This is an unfortunate situation, but the council officer's recommendations is appropriate for this situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. We do have a motion before the council. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favour or against the proposition? Yes, Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Chair, I would like to oppose this motion and foreshadow an alternative motion if this motion fails. Whilst the council officers have assessed the proposal and provided a report, food security is a significant issue in Casey, and this application has broad community interest and impact as many vulnerable members of our community rely on this charitable service. Due to the broad community interest in this application, it was appropriate to call this in to be considered in council rather than relying on delegation to council officers to decide the matter. We have now become the responsible planning authority. We have studied the officer's report, planning assessment, the applicant's submission, plus the letters of support and objection. Councillors have considered all aspects of this matter, and we are having a fully informed debate and making a considered decision. I'd like to foreshadow that I'll present an alternative motion that provides a pathway to resolving this matter, while still considering the needs of the applicant, objectors, and the vulnerable members of our community who rely on this service. We have heard from council officers tonight that this charitable distribution centre provides is a permissible use in this zone, and as the officer's report notes, this charity service provides significant benefits to its users and to our local community. Therefore, I cannot support this motion to refuse to grant a permit. If this motion is lost, then I will present an alternative motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Do we have any other councillors to speak other than... no? Oh, Dave? Councillor...
That's all right. Through you, Chair. I just want to note that whatever decisions we make today, whatever we say today, is being looked at by other levels of government. Both Belinda Wilson and Gary Mass made comments on their Facebook today about this decision, supporting Back to Basics. I know that in the past, like, we can be the responsible authority, but at the end of the day, you know, this is going to go, or this can go to VCAT, and this can go to, you know, beyond that. But I just wanted to say that the current motion that's on the screen at the moment is closing, you know, it is not granting a permit to Back to Basics, and it's going to take time to find them a new place, you know, to operate. From what I'm hearing, there's 7,000 people per week getting food from Back to Basics. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I would like to see what the alternate motion is rather than to make a decision. No, can't do that. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Perry, completed?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from within the group? No others? Right of reply to Councillor Pereira.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. I just want to mention again to councillors that should we allow a permit with conditions, a lot of conditions, there will be consequences for the applicant if they breach those conditions. And to my thinking, they struggle so much as it is to meet these conditions. I think that it will open possibly a can of worms for them and possibly cause even more problems later on. So just bear that in mind. With permits and conditions, you know, they have to be met, and when there's breaches, there has to be consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. I'm now going to put the amended motion to the vote.
All those in favour?
All those in favour?
All those against?
All those against?
Which way are you voting?
Oh, it's all in the... I am also voting against.
The motion is...
The motion is now lost.
And I'd like to call on councillors for an alternate motion.
I'd like to call on the councillors for an alternate recommendation. Councillor
Through you,
Crowther.
Chair, I'd like to present an alternative motion that provides a pathway to resolving this matter. I urge my fellow councillors to support this alternative motion that Council does issue a notice of decision to approve a charitable distribution centre at this site, but with conditions. Prior to the meeting, all councillors were provided a copy of the alternative motion, which can also be seen on the screen. In summary, the conditions of the permit allow the applicant 6 months to amend their site plans and site management plans to address issues identified in the officer's report and planning assessment, especially the issues around waste management, the number of charity service users on site at one time, car parking availability, and the protection of service users to avoid the sharing of car parking space between pedestrians and delivery trucks. The other condition of note is the removal of the op shop signage, as the applicant indicated the op shop is now only for the charitable service users and no sale of items are to occur. By removing the op shop signage, this will reduce the additional public visitors, which will reduce the number of users on site at one time and reduce the impact on parking for surrounding businesses. These conditions ensure the charity's operations reflect only activities of a charity distribution centre, which is a permissible use within this zone. By ensuring the activities remain within the permit conditions and reflect a distribution centre, this will improve the safety for service users, reduce the impact on neighbouring businesses, and address the concerns by the objectors. Many of the permit conditions outlined in this alternative motion aim to reduce the risk to the service users by implementing a booking system with buffer times to manage the number of people attending the site at the same time, to allow more on-site parking by visitors, and aiming to separate delivery trucks from pedestrians. These conditions will protect the service users and ensure the charity's operations reflect only the activities of a charity distribution centre, which is a permissible use within this zone. So I urge my fellow councillors to support this alternative motion that Council does issue a notice of decision to approve a charitable distribution centre at this site, but with the listed conditions.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Taylor. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak, or is there any opposition to the motion? Yes. Councillor Pereira.
Thank you. As I just mentioned before, I just think this will be very onerous on the applicant and could lead to, highly likely lead to breaches, and then there will be consequences that I think could be avoided. Thank you.
Do we have any other councillors that would like to speak? Councillor Perry?
I agree with Lynette to a certain extent that it will be difficult and it's not a perfect old motion. It's not a perfect situation, but I think in the short term we have to think that the food for 7,000 people in our community is a physiological need of requirement that underpins every other need that a person has. And charitable food services like Back to Basics, you know, they're giving back to these people that are, you know, they can't just go to Coles and buy food at the moment. They need to, you know, they don't want to have to go to a charity, they have to go to a charity. So it's giving them back that humanity of being able to eat or provide for their family. And, you know, I think it's too important for in our community to just say no to it at this point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak? Yes.
Through you, Councillor, I acknowledge that Back to Basics has been a real pillar of support for so many Casey residents, which is truly commendable. However, I also acknowledge that we have a responsibility to ensure that planning controls are properly applied and upheld. As a solicitor with expertise in owners' corporation law, I understand the complexities involved when land use impacts surrounding residents and properties. I have reviewed the officer's report, and though their planning assessment appears to be correct, I've also read the alternate motion put forward by Councillor Crowther and the conditions proposed, which I think are satisfactory. I hope that if this motion is passed tonight, that the conditions are followed closely to ensure that any future operations aligned with both community needs and proper planning requirements. I will be supporting this tonight.
Thank you very much for your input in there. Are there any other comments that anybody would like to make? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, so if this motion passes, with this approval, Council has set out a number of conditions to ensure that the centre operates in harmony with the KC planning scheme and respects the surrounding precinct. These conditions are designed to minimise any potential impacts and support the ongoing success of the service. Regular compliance reporting will help ensure these standards are maintained and that the centre continues to operate smoothly. And I encourage Back to Basics to work closely with the councillor officers as you implement these changes. Their support and guidance will be invaluable in making this transition as seamless as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any other councillors wish to make further comment? No? Councillor Crowther, do you wish to have a right of reply?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next step is putting the ultimate motion to the vote. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's just vote again. 2, 5, 6. All those against? 2. Oh, the motion is carried.
Okay, we'll now invite the chair to...
I'll now invite the chair to return to the post.
Thanks, Gary.
Right.
All right, thank you, councillors. Thank you, the gallery. We've now returned to a full complement of councillors. We will move on to item 4.5, which is the 2025-2028 Land Use Strategy Work Plan, and we're joined by Ms. Catherine Surlis, the Manager of Growth and Investment. Welcome, Ms. Surlis, if you'd like to take us through the report.
Thank you, and through the Mayor. Good evening, councillors. I'm pleased to present this report tonight, which is our Land Use Strategy Work Plan for the next 3 years. This plan demonstrates how we contribute to the delivery of the community vision and outcomes sought by prioritising council-led projects that provide maximum community benefit. It provides transparency on the priorities and the work that we're going to be undertaking over the next 3 years and helps support council, community, the development sector and Victorian government agencies to progress various initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Searles. Councillors, any questions for the officer in relation to this report? No questions. All right, we have a motion or recommendation on the screen. Do we have a motion from councillors to put forward? Councillor Rowe, as on the screen, and a seconder. Councillor Dazon. Thank you. Anyone speaking in opposition to the motion? No. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Dazon.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I'd just like to support the motion to adopt the land use strategy work plan. I'd like to highlight one item in this work plan, which is the review of the activity centres. This has been a priority of our councillor group, and it's great to see it's included in the work plan. I'd like to highlight that Cranbourne High Street has long needed a review and upgrade, and I've spoken to many high street traders and community members about the appearance and safety in high street. So an activity centre review is much needed in Casey, and I'm glad to see it's on the work plan.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo Councillor Crowther's comments about the activity centres, that we're all extremely keen on activating them and getting the most that we can from our activity centres while acknowledging the uniqueness of them all. So, yeah, I'm really excited about what that might look like in the future too.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No other speakers. I'll make a short contribution. I'm very supportive of this works plan. It's a full plan. I think officers have done their best to reflect the needs, as has been stated, around activity centres, but also some of the priorities for areas that may have not been going as we'd hoped, not been developing or seen the investment or improvements that we might, as residents, expect. And on that note, I think one of particular importance is the inclusion around point 4, thriving local economy, to review the Hampton Park Central Development Plan to identify new opportunities to facilitate the development and revitalisation of the activity centre at Hampton Park. Residents in Hampton Park are well aware of the challenges and the long-term issues around amenity and how it presents in our community. I would like to particularly thank Councillor Pereira for her efforts to champion, to bring this review to the table. It's something that's been included in the forward years plan. I look forward to seeing it beginning, and I think it hopefully can stimulate some growth there, because it's been 6 years, as many will know, since the original plan was put in place, and we really haven't seen any active change or investment. And I think it's about reviewing those structures and the model, and trying to find a way forward, because it's certainly, as a ward councillor in Hampton Park, it's something that's raised with me a lot. So I certainly endorse this works plan, and particularly that item. I'll be voting in favour. Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to it's a very small little point in it, but I just wanted to point out the Prepare the Southern Ranges Green Wedge Management Plan is earmarked for 27-28. I think we've discussed it, if we could bring it forward a little bit, but it's great that it's in there, and I think that the community should have as much input into that as they possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Any other councillors to speak to the motion? No other speakers, and none in opposition. We will put this to a vote. All those in favour of the motion on the screen, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. Passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, we now move on to item 4.6, sorry, as I catch up, which is the amendments to C302 case and C303 case. to the Casey Planning Scheme. And we have again Ms Surlis, Manager of Growth and Investment, to speak to this report.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is a relatively procedural amendment which seeks to introduce extended expiry dates for 2 development contribution plans in Lyndhurst and Cranbourne East. So these plans are relatively old and as such are coming to the end of their current life. It was expected that this land would be fully developed by now, but that is not the case. So we need to seek approval from the Minister to extend the life of these DCPs to enable the last few parcels to be able to develop and make payment and contribution towards infrastructure. So all we are doing is a statutory process to extend the expiry dates for DCPs in Lyndhurst and Cranbourne East. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Surlis. Councillors, any questions for Ms Surlis? No questions. I do have one question, Ms Surlis, just in relation to this. So am I right in understanding that this extension will actually, it's good for Casey because it will extend and maximise the number of contributions that we can get to build infrastructure and assets? Is that?
Through you, Mayor, correct. So if we chose not to do this and the plans expired at the end of the year without these properties developing, we potentially lose out on about $3 million worth of contribution. So by extending it, we hope to capture that to contribute to the projects that are identified in these plans.
Thank you, Ms Surlis. Question, Councillor Perry?
Are they generally 5 years that they have to develop these sites?
No, so we're asking to extend it another 5 years, hoping that that will be enough for the final few properties to extend. Interestingly, the new, more modern DCPs don't have expiry timeframes because it appreciates that it gets developed when it gets developed. So this is one of our older DCPs, so we're working within this older scheme here.
Thank you, Ms Surlis. No further questions, councillors? All right, thank you for your contributions. We'll now move to the recommendation as on the screen. Councillors, do we have a motion, a mover and a seconder? Councillor Walter to move and Councillor Eves as seconder. Anyone speaking in opposition to the motion? None against. All right, we will move to Councillor Walter. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Through you, Mayor, yes. I will be supporting this motion as any developmental contributions help us not have to use rates for that. So any infrastructure that we need, that $3 million will be better spent by the developers than the ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor Walter. Councillor Eves, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to point out this is very good for the residents of Lyndhurst in Quarters Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eves. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No other speakers. We'll put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. On that note, we'll now move on to our final officers' report, which is 4.7, Councillor Internal Resolution Procedure. And we have Ms Chloe Casey, Manager of Communications and Corporate Governance, to speak to this report. Thank you, Ms Casey.
Thank you and good evening, councillors. The Internal Resolution Procedure is a legislative requirement associated with the rollout of the Councillor Conduct Framework. The Councillor Conduct Framework is established under Part 6 of the Local Government Act 2020 and provides a hierarchy for the management of councillor conduct complaints to address different levels of misconduct. The Councillor Conduct Framework is set out in the Local Government Act 2020 and is designed to establish clear standards of conduct expected to be observed by councillors and to provide timely, fair and proportionate intervention in relation to councillor conduct issues. There are a range of policies and procedures that are required by legislation to be implemented within council to support the councillor conduct framework. The internal resolution procedure is one of these legislative requirements. Disputes between councillors may arise in a variety of circumstances, and this procedure will apply to these disputes where one councillor, being the complainant, alleges that another councillor, being the respondent, has breached the Model Councillor Code of Conduct. The internal resolution procedure provides an overview of how to conduct conciliation between councillors respectfully, with a view to resolving conflicts prior to needing to engage more formal means of arbitration. Every councillor is required to have in place by 1 July 2025 a council internal resolution procedure for dealing with alleged breaches of the Model Code of Conduct. A copy of the council internal resolution procedure has been included as an attachment to this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Casey. Councillors, any questions for Ms Casey? No questions. We have a recommendation on the screen. Councillors, do we have a motion? A mover, Councillor Rowe, and a seconder, Councillor Pereira. Anyone speaking in opposition to the motion as on the screen? No. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Pereira, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just very quickly, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is just bringing it into line with other councils, just so there's some sort of consistency across all the councils in the way these are dealt with, which I think is a good thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No? All right. On that note, we'll put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillor Dowling, are you... you're aware we're voting on... all those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you, councillors. That's passed unanimously. And that concludes our officers' reports for this evening. So we will now move on to following items, which is item 5, consideration of reports of committees. There are no reports of committees, so moving on to item 6, petitions. There were no petitions received for this council meeting. And now we will move to item 7, public questions. And I will now refer over to the acting CEO to take us through those questions. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate the effort made by all the community members to submit a public question to Council for consideration. So under the governance rules, Council is required to review the list of questions received to ensure that only valid questions that have not been previously addressed are raised at a Council meeting. So Council over the last 6 to 12 months has received and answered a total of 122 questions on Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station, including an overarching statement that was read by the Mayor at the April Council meeting, directly addressing the background and updates on this topic sparked by questions raised by the community. Section 65.9.5 permits questions that are similar in subject matter, already answered at a Council meeting, to be ruled invalid, to ensure efficiency and avoid duplication during question time at public meetings. So we received 56 questions. There were 6 public questions that were ruled invalid, and there was additional 2 questions outside of that 46 that were received after the 10 a.m. cut-off. So the following submitters have been already notified. Andrew Quaros, Troy Van Grop, Reto Freyhofer, Raymond Darley, Rex Flannery, and Amjit Gill. And we received, the 2 public questions received after the 10 a.m. cut-off were from Jane Foreman. So we now move into the questions. So question 1 is from Joan Quares. How does placing a waste transfer station within 500 metres of residential zones align with the purpose of residential zoning under the Casey planning scheme? And this will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Joan, for your question. The waste transfer station is located in a special use zone. Council has considered this zoning in making its decision on the permit. Council has considered proximity of the site to residential areas in its decision to grant a permit. You can request a copy of our full assessment of the planning permit application, including consideration of these matters, via our governance team.
Question 2 is from Terence Kazakov. When or if was the traffic management review for the Wilson Botanical Gardens satellite car park done? The intersection of Kramer and Harkaway Road is already incredibly congested in the mornings and evenings due to the proximity to the roundabout without the increase in traffic from the car park. This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thank you, Terence, for your question. A traffic and parking impact assessment will be undertaken. This will include a review of traffic volume in Kramer Drive. This will be completed prior to any community engagement on the proposed Kramer Drive car park.
Question 3 from Paul Greenman. Why do the answers of all the monthly meetings have no name for accountability? Are they being answered by artificial intelligence? This will be answered by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thanks, Paul. All public question responses that are read out and included in the council meeting minutes include the title of the manager and director that have prepared the response, and this is included in the minutes.
Question 4 is also from Paul Greenman. Why do the electors have to now register and show ID to go into their own funded building when only 11 men and women showed up last month? I believe someone is lying when 69 other spots were booked online and yet vacant. This will be answered by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thanks, Paul. We are disappointed that the public gallery wasn't at capacity during last month's council meeting. Unfortunately, we are seeing repeated efforts by a small number of individuals who are intent on disrupting or derailing our council meetings. Their actions do a disservice to the broader Casey community and prevent genuine residents from engaging with us. We implemented additional verification processes to the registration process for tonight's council meeting and to enable genuinely interested residents who want to take part in council meetings in a responsible and constructive way to attend. As part of our ongoing commitment to provide a safe return to in-person council meetings, the public gallery is restricted to a maximum of 80 people and a ticketed registration process is in place. Along with their ticket, attendees are also required to produce a valid form of ID which ensures fairness and accountability in our public proceedings. This ID requirement was clearly communicated and is in place for a reason, to ensure the safety and orderly participation of all attendees.
Question 5 is from Joe Pang. I understand the T-junction at Watercolour Boulevard and Patterson Road will be closed permanently from June. Residents weren't formally notified. Most heard through the estate newsletter. This is one of only 2 exits. With growing construction, closing it will push all traffic to Arana Boulevard, creating congestion and safety risks similar to issues in Calcao. Given past media coverage, this could reflect poorly on the City of Casey. Why was this decision made, and can it be delayed until more exits? And this will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thank you, Joe. The Watercolour Boulevard and Patterson Road intersection was originally a temporary T intersection to support safe vehicle movements during the early stages of the Arana estate, when traffic volumes were significantly lower. To improve safety, it will be converted to a left-in, left-out only intersection, with right-turn movements redirected to the signalised Arana Boulevard intersection. Construction of Heather Grove through to Watercolour Boulevard will begin soon, providing additional access points for Arana Estate.
Question 6 is from Rito Freihofer. So, were originally LDRZ lots minimum 0.4 hectare lots bracket before the change to 0.2 to 2.2 hectare bracket? If that is the case, how is it possible to have smaller lot sizes in this zone? And why can quite a lot of ones that are 0.4 hectare size and are on the Mac Road or Halcyon Way or running of sub-roads still subdivided without issues around road crossings or reticulated sewerage or services, but properties in College Drive can't? This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Rito. 0.4 hectares was the minimum lot size set for the area from the start of the Casey planning scheme in 1999. In 2013, the state government made changes to the zone to allow subdivisions of 0.2 hectares where sewerage is available. There are some historical scenarios that can explain existing lots smaller than 0.4 hectares. The properties on Mac Road and Halcyon Way are not subject to the Development Plan Overlay Schedule 1 and do not have the same planning controls as College Drive.
Questions 7 and 8 are both from Carla Freehofer, and they both relate to College Drive. So the first question is 365 Pound Road, GRZ lot, is between 0.6 and 0.8 hectares and has 30 townhouses. GRZ defines it under 400 metres squared lots that need 25% green spaces. How could 30 townhouses be put on there, but College Drive can't subdivide into 0.2 hectare lots due to DPO 1? Is that since 365 Pound Road was done by a developer, Or is it that since council will get way more rates from all those than what they would get from College Drive? And the second question is, why do we in College Drive hit so many problems getting us excluded from DPO1, even though all services, including reticulated sewage, are available? Why doesn't the subdivision at 365 Pound Road show a planning scheme on the Casey spatial website? And if it is not a subdivision, why could they build 30 townhouses on it? Both of these will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thank you, Carla. 365 Pound Road, Hampton Park is zoned General Residential Zone. This zone has been in place since 1999. The zone does not require minimum lot sizes and it allows for the development of different categories of housing, including townhouses. A permit was granted to develop this land in 2016. Different planning rules apply to College Drive.
Question 9 is from Raymond Daly. Given that 96 A-double trucks will be using Hallam Road as a route to transport waste from Hallam Road Landfill's new waste transfer station to the waste-to-energy incinerator at Maryvale, and the future proposal of expansion will see this increase to 130 AWs per day, will the City of Casey exercise its powers to protect the community and ensure safety for residents by prohibiting the use of Hallam Road as a thoroughfare for these trucks? This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thanks for your question, Raymond. Hallam Road is managed by the Department of Transport and Planning and is not a council-managed road. Veolia has sought permission from the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator to allow A-doubles to travel between the Veolia site and Maryvale Paper Mill site. Hallam Road cannot be used for these types of trucks until permission is received from the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. The regulator would liaise directly with the Department of Transport over whether permission should be given for trucks to use Hallam Road.
Question 10 is from Ruth Daly. Will the City of Casey put on record of minutes that it did not enter into any contractual obligations with Veolia guaranteeing that the Hallam Road landfill site will be made available for the proposed waste first transfer station regardless of resident opposition? And this will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thanks for submitting this question, Ruth. The planning process is completely independent to any contractual obligations Casey has to Veolia. There is not and cannot be a contractual requirement for the City of Casey to guarantee the issuing of a permit. The City of Casey assessed the waste transfer station permit application in accordance with its obligations as the responsible authority.
Question 11 is also from Ruth Daly. Will the City of Casey declare that they are not obligated to financially compensate Veolia or any member of the South Eastern Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing Group if VCAT uphold the EPA's refusal to grant a development licence for a waste transfer station? And this will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thank you again for your question, Ruth. Obtaining the EPA development licence is the responsibility of Veolia as the proponent of the proposed Hampton Park waste transfer station. The VCAT process is completely independent of any contractual obligations the City of Casey has to Veolia. The City of Casey is not a party to the VCAT process and is not liable for compensation to Veolia or any or other councils based solely on the decision of either the EPA or VCAT in the determination of a development licence.
Question 12 is from Neville Walker. Of the 60 formal submissions on the draft suite of corporate planning documents, how many, if any, were successful? Before the next planning year, will there be community consultation and the opportunity for residents to lodge formal submissions? This will be answered by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thanks for the question, Neville. The public submissions received by the community revealed broad themes which then resulted in changes or updates to the corporate suite of documents. These changes are outlined in the covering report for today's item 4.2. There will be the same public exhibition process next year, whereby residents can offer feedback on the contents of the draft suite of corporate planning documents. Those residents offering feedback will again be provided the opportunity to speak to their submission at the council meeting or special council meeting, and councillors will consider those submissions prior to the adoption of the corporate planning documents, and these documents are reviewed annually.
Question 13 was from Kenneth Ardley. In addition to submitters being formally advised of the outcome of their submissions, will the advice include reasons as to their success or failure? And this will be answered by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thanks, Kenneth. Everyone who made a formal submission through the public exhibition process for the draft suite of corporate planning documents will receive a response from Council that provides further information and reasoning as to why Council believed a material change to the documents may or may not have been appropriate.
Question 14 is from Kenneth Ardley. Will the 60 submissions be made public and posted on Council's website? This will also be answered by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thanks, Kenneth. As the contents of the public submissions may include private information, we will not be publishing this information. A summary of the major themes identified against each document within the draft suite of corporate planning documents has been published on the Casey Conversation website, Shape Your City project page.
Questions 15, 16, 17 and 20 were all in relation to Back to Basics. So they were received from Martine Fleming, Hannah Capsalis, Sage Bias and Sarah Waterman. And they are as follows. Why are you not supporting this hardworking charity organisation with their application when they are supporting your residents just to survive? How do you plan to support the 5,000 registered and struggling with food insecurity if you close Back to Basics? The council, which contains the largest population for a local government in Victoria and collects among the amount of rates charged to its people. Councillors, please outline the steps the City of Casey will take to assist Back to Basics so they can achieve its operational permits and get back to providing assistance to thousands of people in the region. I would just like an honest answer as to why you're not allowing Back to Basics to remain on their site, and if you have offered them any reasonable solutions to be able to continue their wonderful work they do. And I'll answer this one. So, this matter was considered as part of item 4.4 and was debated at length by councillors, and the minutes and the report will be available on the City of Casey website on Thursday the 19th of June 2025, which provides answers to those above questions. So moving on to question 18 is by Ian Wood. I know that Council is upgrading one of its aquatic centres, but I'm wondering if any of the other aquatic centres have plans to place to be upgraded or expanded. These centres are showing their age and certain equipment needs to be upgraded and or replaced. One of the centres is at certain times reaching capacity and I know has room for expansion, so there is an argument now for it to be expanded. So am I just wondering what plans Council has going forward? And this will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you for your question, Ian. Our aquatic facilities strategy from 2019 to 2041 outlines a thorough plan to manage our existing aquatic facilities. This plan considers future population growth and demand while ensuring we're being financially sustainable within a rate-capped environment. The strategy also includes a long-term project to plan for a fourth public aquatic facility within the Clyde growth area, and currently we're excited to see works underway on the rebuild of the 50-metre public pool in Doveton. Council is also actively advocating for state government investment to support aquatic facilities and to meet future demand.
Question 19 and 39 are from in relation to Casey Youth Services, and they've been submitted by David Parr and Gillian Nambu. What is the future plan for youth services in Casey, and what impact on wait times will the Casey Council expect to achieve with this review? Will this review improve the mental outcomes for youths on Casey, and will Casey Youth Services be curtailed or charged on anyway? I saw on Facebook that there is concern about the continuation of youth services. Casey's counselling services are immensely valuable for my child this year when no psychological services were available in Casey or nearby. Why isn't community consultation occurring around youth services, especially the outsourcing of youth counselling, is a fundamental change that affects the nature and potentially quality of the youth counselling our young people receive. And this will be answered by the Director of Community Life.
Thank you for your question, David and Gillian. The City of Casey regularly reviews its services to ensure they're continuing to meet community needs and are contemporary in practice. The recent review of Council's youth service program identified some opportunities for improvement that are currently being worked through, and we look forward to sharing with the community in July. Council is committed to the wellbeing of our young people, and I want to confirm that we will maintain our investment in new services and the associated budget.
Question 21 is from Malcolm Sharp. Was Cameron Boardman currently in the somewhat Orwellian role of state government appointed monitor, a state government appointed administrator of the City of Casey when, in 2022, the state government selected Berwick Springs and Cranbourne Botanic Gardens as potential sites for a landmark to be named after Guri Nanak? The response will be answered by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thank you. In 2022, Mr. Boardman was in the role of Administrator for the City of Casey. The panel of administrators were appointed following the dismissal of Casey City Councillors under the Local Government Casey City Council 2020 Bill, which passed Parliament on the 19th of Feb 2020.
Questions 22, 27 and 31 are all in relating to the South Eastern Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing. And they were submitted by Anthony Tassone, Bernadette Dixon and Chris Lucy. And the three questions are, how was authorisation given and by whom for the City of Casey to enter into a supply agreement as part of the South Eastern Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing Proprietary Limited, and why was this agreement entered into prior to a planning permit issued for a waste transfer station at Hampton Park? Given South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing's chair acknowledged in writing that the consortium signed the 25-year agreement on the basis that the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station would proceed, does Council accept this creates a perception that the outcome was predetermined before full planning approval? And the last question was, given new councillors were sworn in on the 8th of November 2022, it should say 24, just 4 days after the permit was granted, can Council confirm whether any South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing related decisions or omissions occurred under the previous Council without full transparency to the incoming elected body? This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Anthony, Bernadette and Chris. The City of Casey's pursuit of a regional approach to an advanced waste processing solution for South East Melbourne has been public knowledge since at least 2017, including publicly reported progress of the project via council plan reporting. Relevant authority was given to the CEO to enter into agreements and take actions at council meetings on the 5th of March 2019 and 15th of February 2022. Most recently, at the council meeting on the 16th of July 2024, authorisation was given to execute the waste supply agreement and related documents. This resolution is available in full in the council meeting minutes of this date under item 14.1 on the council website. The 9 councils of the South East Waste Management SWMAP publicly announced that the new waste supply agreement with Maryvale project on 19th of August 2024. The new councillors were briefed on the advanced waste processing agreements on the 28th of January 2025. This agreement is based on Maryvale Co achieving a number of different milestones, including through Veolia achieving the required permits and licences to operate. Entering into the waste services agreement on this basis is appropriate.
Question 23 from Anthony Tassone. The Council has previously advised that the roadworks for a roundabout at South Gippsland Highway and Bellardo Road are due for completion in mid-2025. Can the Council provide an update on this project and expected completion date? This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. Construction of the South Gippsland Highway Bellardo Road project is progressing with major milestones such as the asphalting and public lighting having recently commenced. Council officers are working closely with the managing contractor and delivery partners to have the road open to the public by the end of July 2025, although this timeline may change depending on weather conditions. Partial lane closures may be required through August for completion of auxiliary works.
Question 24 is from Brian Oates. I would like to know how much revenue was charged to candidates from the election last year for the improper placing of corflues and other campaign misdemeanours. I believe this would be a deterrent for future elections, and this will be answered by the Director of Community Life.
Thanks for your question, Brian. During the lead up to the recent federal election, Council issued 219 infringements for breaches of the Casey Community Local Law regarding electoral signage on Council land. However, Following the recent Victorian Supreme Court decision in Stuart Smith versus the City of Boroondara, we, like several other councils, are currently reassessing how to effectively regulate electoral signage into the future.
Question 25 and 30 are both in relation to Resource Co by Shannon Lynch and Rowan Dixon. Resource Co Hampton Park is now working 24 hours a day. Why didn't residents of Narre Warren South and Cranbourne North get consulted of changes to its processing hours when it affects sleep and quality of life? Considering the Council's acknowledgement that the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action oversees the rehabilitation works at the Resource Co site, what steps has Council taken to coordinate with DECA and other relevant agencies to ensure that the rehabilitation activities do not adversely affect the local community, particularly in terms of noise and traffic during non-standard hours? This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thanks for the questions, Shannon and Rowan. Council is aware of residents' concerns in relation to the activities at 605 Glasscox Road. We understand that the site is currently being rehabilitated as required under a work authority issued by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action. The work authority regulates how the land is to be rehabilitated after the resource is extracted. No council approval is required. However, council officers have raised concerns with DECA and the EPA, as these are the bodies who manage compliance with the Works Authority and commercial noise coming from the land. We'll continue to raise concerns with these authorities. We recommend that you also report your concerns directly to the EPA and DECA. Thank you.
Question 26 is from Gillian Nambu. Can the City work towards obtaining breastfeeding-friendly workplace accreditation from the Australian Breastfeeding Association like other councils? Many mothers don't reach their breastfeeding goals due to receiving advice from MCH that isn't evidence-based. Can greater effort be made to support professional development for MCH? Can the City take additional active steps to foster a more supportive, informed and welcoming culture around breastfeeding for families? This will be answered by the Director of Community Life.
Thanks for your question, Gillian. Our maternal and child health nurses follow the National Health and Medical Research Council, or NHMRC, infant feeding guidelines and the World Health Organisation's code, which is evidence-based and encourages and supports and promotes breastfeeding in Australia. MCH nurses, as health workers, have a responsibility to promote breastfeeding. But if infant formula is needed, they will educate and support parents about formula feeding in accordance with those NHMRC guidelines. The MCH service works collaboratively with the Australian Breastfeeding Association, promoting their services, resources and community supports. Each of our MCH centres does have a quiet corner for breastfeeding. Council also has a lactation program available to residents which offers advice from a qualified lactation consultant.
Question 28 is from Bernadette Dixon. What conflict of interest protocols or probity measures were followed internally by the Council in managing its dual role as a planning authority for the waste transfer station and as a shareholder for the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing? And this will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thank you, Bernadette, for your question. The issuing of a planning permit and for the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing procurement were two completely separate processes. As the responsible planning authority for the area, Council's planning officers have assessed the application for the waste transfer station based on the relevant legislation and planning controls. A permit was granted subject to a number of conditions addressing environmental factors. As a separate process, and one that started a number of years before the planning permit for a waste transfer station was received, the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing procurement process was facilitated by the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action on behalf of the 9 participating councils. This process was governed by strict probity controls and was overseen by an external probity auditor. Casey officers involved in the procurement were required to sign conflict of interest declarations and were excluded from consideration of the planning permit for the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station.
Question 29 is from Rowan Dixon. Given that residents have reported continuous operations and associated disturbances at the ResCo site since mid-May 2025, can the Council confirm whether these activities align with the site's approved operational hours and permitted uses? Furthermore, what measures has the council taken to monitor compliance and address any deviations from the authorised operations? This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning and Infrastructure.
Thank you for your further question, Rowan. The use of land for quarrying at 605 Glasscox Road in Hampton Park predated the need for a planning permit. Therefore, no planning permit is controlling the current activities on this land. Council has raised residents' concerns with the relevant agencies who oversee rehabilitation and commercial noise coming from the land. We will continue to work with these agencies on behalf of the community.
Question 32 is from Chris Lucy. Does Councillor Kim Ross plan to represent her community in relation to the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station by joining the other councillors that have identified as having a negatively impacted community? And this will be responded by the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thanks for your question, Chris, and your interest in this important matter. I'll respond to this question as Mayor in accordance with the governance rules, which allow only the Chair and the CEO or delegates to respond to public questions. However, I have liaised with Councillor Ross regarding this response. The Council remains committed to advocating on behalf of the community on matters that impact residents, including concerns about the proposed waste transfer station in Hampton Park. 4 days prior to our election as the new council in November 2024, the City of Casey approved a planning permit for the waste transfer station as part of its statutory role as the responsible planning authority. Since our election at that time, myself as Mayor and the councillors, including Councillor Ross, have worked to ensure that community concerns about the waste transfer station have been heard. This has included making multiple submissions and representations to the EPA and the Victorian Government and supporting a notice of motion in March 2025 led by Councillor Lynette Pereira to advocate for the Hampton Park and surrounding community. Then in April 2025, the EPA formally refused a development licence application by Veolia. The EPA determined that the proposed waste transfer station posed unacceptable risks to human health and the environment, primarily due to odour and noise emissions given its proximity to residential homes. The EPA's decision is currently being reviewed by VCAT, and we will continue to keep the community informed as further updates become available. Thank you.
Question 33 is from Shannon Lynch. Has Council formally advised the Minister of Planning that the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing entered a binding contract based on the waste transfer station proceeding, despite the facility still being subject to unresolved planning conditions and a live VCAT appeal? This will be answered by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thanks for your question, Shannon. It is not necessary as part of the contract process to advise the Minister of Planning for such.
Question 34 is from Peter Wilson. I'm a resident of Casey. I have a very simple question for the Mayor and Council. Where is the rule that states you have to pass on this tax grab disguised as fire service levy? And this will be responded to by the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you for your question, Peter. I understand you are in the gallery tonight as well, so welcome to you too. I will to answer your question directly. From July 1, Council has legislated to collect the levy under the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund Act 2012, which replaces the previous Fire Services Property Levy Act 2012. The first one should be 2025. If Council did not include this in rates notices, we would be in breach of the law. However, Council has acknowledged, and I've done so publicly, the financial pressures that this places on property owners in our community, and particularly those with larger rural properties. This was also noted by a number of councillors this evening. As Mayor, I've advocated against the changes due to our concerns about fairness and impact, and as a member of the Municipal Association of Victoria, MAV, our peak body, Council have followed MAV's position in lobbying the state government to reconsider Council's role in collecting this levy. While Council is required to act as the levy collector, the funds go directly to the state government, and we will continue to work with the MAV and relevant stakeholders to advocate for a fairer approach that minimises burdens on residents. Thanks for your question again, Peter.
Question 35 is from Giovanna Dianabali. Will the Council support a community-led inquiry into Casey's governance practices, including conflict of interest, smart city surveillance infrastructure and contract transparency? This will be responded to by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thank you, Giovanna. Council is committed to supporting transparency and accountability in its governance practices, and it adheres strictly to the requirements set forth in the Local Government Act. This Act ensures that all governance practices, including conflict of interest management, smart city surveillance infrastructure, and contract transparency, are conducted with the highest level of integrity and compliance. Moreover, regulators such as the Local Government Inspectorate and the Victorian Ombudsman play a crucial role in assessing and overseeing these requirements. These regulators have the authority to examine council's practices and ensure they align with the statutory obligations.
Question 36 is also from Giovanna Diabambali. Can the council provide evidence that permit systems have been implemented following community consultation, transparency principles and consistency with the Commonwealth Constitution? This will be responded to by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thank you, Giovanna. Council considers planning permit applications in accordance with the framework established under the Planning and Environment Act 1987, which is state government legislation.
Question 37 is from Peter Duncanson. Can the council provide a breakdown of who benefits financially from the waste transfer station, including contractors, landowners or related entities? This will be responded to by the Acting Director of City Planning Infrastructure.
Thanks for your question, Peter. The proposed Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station will be privately owned and operated by Veolia. Any questions regarding the financial benefit from this facility should be directed to Veolia. The City of Casey will benefit from the facility by providing a location for waste through its participation in the South East Metropolitan Advanced Waste Processing Procurement and the Waste Supply Agreement. The City of Casey will pay a gate fee for waste that it collects from the community and delivers to the facility, where it will be consolidated before being transported to a waste-to-energy facility in Maryvale.
Question 38 is from Peter Duncanson. When will the City of Casey restore full, unrestricted and unconditional public access to council meetings as required under principles of public transparency and participatory democracy? This will be responded to by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thank you again, Peter. Council has introduced a cap on attendees to ensure safe and orderly meeting for both attendees and our councillors and council staff attending the meeting. This process is not uncommon, and many other local councils have implemented similar measures. This is compliant with Section 66(1) and 66(2)A in that the meeting is still open to the public for viewing online via live stream. More specifically, council are limiting attendance in line with Section 66(2)B and 66(2)C relating to security concerns and a necessity to do so to enable the meeting to proceed in an orderly manner, given the February council meeting experience. At this time, council has no intention of removing the registration process or attendance cap.
Question 40 is from Amanjit Gill. On the 21st of November 2019, Council gazetted an amendment to Local Law 2018. Then on 20th of April 2021, Council administrators resolved to gazette a notice that this amendment was of no effect due to procedural errors, citing mismatched document titles and incorrectly numbered clauses. If errors of similar magnitude that alter the validity of the law rather than its substance are identified in Local Law 2023 or any future local law, how will Council address this? This will be responded to by the Director of Customer and Corporate Services.
Thank you for your question regarding the prior amendments to the Community Local Law 2018 and council resolutions that took place on 20 April 2021. Council acknowledges these errors and the action taken to address these concerns as documented in the Council reports at this time. Regarding the Casey Community Local Law 2023, Council is aware of community concern and media reports relating to land and neighbourhood amenity clauses, private land use and the application of permits. In March 2025, Council unanimously resolved to undertake a comprehensive review of the Casey Community Local Law 2023. Permit fees have been suspended during this review and extensive community consultation is underway. A revised draft law will be released later this year for further public feedback. Council has strengthened its internal processes to ensure future laws are accurate, compliant and enforceable. As demonstrated by Council's previous actions in resolving errors, if procedural errors were found in the future, Council would act promptly to correct them through the legal review and public notification.
Mayor, that concludes the public question time.
Thank you, Mr Collins. Just for clarity, just to note there were 46 questions. Yeah, 46, because you said 56, I think.
Oh, sorry, 46 questions, 6 public questions were ruled invalid and 2 public questions were received after 10 a.m. cut-off.
Thank you very much. On that note, we'll move now to our final items with little to do but work through them. Item 8, notice of motion. There are no notice of motions for this evening's council meeting. Item 9, late reports. There were no late reports for this council meeting. Item 10, urgent business. There were no urgent business items received for this council meeting. And item 11, closed council. There were no closed council reports for this meeting. So item 12, I officially declare the council meeting today is closed, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, for those joining us online, and also the officers who've been here in our AV team. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening. Thank you.